Question 15, the Book of Questions. If you could choose the manner of your death, what would it be? There's a supplemental question to this at the back. Why they put the supplemental questions right at the back, I don't know. I mean, it's not as though there's not plenty of room on the pages to add them in the middle of the book, but they do. Would you prefer to die a hero's death, die a martyr to some great cause, die in a natural catastrophe, or die peacefully? Why is it so tempting to have death creep up on us in our sleep? How do your feelings about death influence the way you lead your life? I think I might start with the supplemental questions, actually. What would you prefer to die a hero's death? Well, I certainly would prefer to die a hero's death than its obvious corollary. I don't want to die a coward's death, but at the instant I'm dead, even if it was a coward's death, hey, responsibility is completely lifted from my shoulders. I will be unconscious, I will be gone, and I don't have to worry about anything at all. But while we are alive, it is perhaps good and responsible to behave and encourage others to behave in a way that looks after our fellow man and keeps their interests in mind. And a coward's death might put others in danger and achieve nothing, whereas a hero's death might achieve something useful, or be inspirational, be, I don't know, in some way good, presumably. Otherwise, why is the word hero being ascribed to it? But hero's death here is not being contrasted with a coward's death. Instead, it's the others in the list. And the next one is die a martyr to some great cause. Now, there are some people who might think, well, that's the same as a hero's death. I'm going to draw a distinction. No, I would say that whereas I might prefer a hero's death to certain other deaths, I don't want to live in a world in which people are encouraged to make martyrs of themselves. I don't think it's the way we should go about getting things done. If someone dies a martyr to a cause and it doesn't achieve the aims of that cause, then it's just wasteful. The people who loved that person who became a martyr will be resentful of those who pushed them into doing it, will grieve the loss of their loved one, and will be particularly aggrieved because it didn't achieve what they were dying for. So it just makes everything worse. It's lose, lose, lose across the board there. But if you do die a martyr and your cause is then achieved, it says a great cause, suggesting this isn't just you doing something for one other member of your family or something. This is some great cause that's affecting the whole of society. Well, if the death of one person can make the difference, I would say that society was pretty close to being ready for whatever change was necessary anyway. And so possibly, if you just waited a fortnight, things would have sorted themselves out and everything would have been fine. So no, a bizarre thought is that I am an influencer. I met someone just last weekend who said that I'd inspired him to do history at university. So that presumably would then alter his choice of university. Then he'll meet different people, marry someone else, and different children will be in the world. Yeah, I'm an influencer. I shouldn't be influencing people towards martyrdom. And one way to do that, perhaps, is to become a martyr yourself and set an example. Well, that is the road to suicide bombers. So no, I'm not equating that with dying a hero's death. No. So at the moment, front runner is hero. Die in a natural catastrophe. Who would say that? Why is that even on the list? Die in how is that appealing? It's just random. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, presumably. It could be that you put yourself in unnecessary danger. You were a volcanologist going next to a volcano that was just about to explode, and bang! It went boom like Mount St. Helens did with, I believe, the force of 400 Hiroshima bombs, in which case at least that would be quick, but a lot of people would say, well, he was an idiot to put himself there. But maybe you're just in an earthquake and the building on you collapses and you die 5 days later in agony, half crushed and with the sounds of the people digging towards you to rescue you in your ears. Oh, it's one of the worst deaths imaginable, isn't it? The only thing that occurs to me that might explain its inclusion in this list is that at least you're completely absolved of responsibility, unless you did put yourself in a particularly dangerous position. But imagine it is just a random thing, a flood, lightning, whatever. It was just rotten luck. How does that make it better for you or anyone else? It's not necessarily a painless death. It's not necessarily a quick death. It's not a heroic death. So no, I'm just going to say no, I don't want to die in a natural catastrophe. I don't see how that's appealing at all. Or die peacefully. Well, that's good. Why is it tempting to have death creep up on us in our sleep? Well, because it's painless. I mean, again, why is that a question? Is that not obvious? Am I being stupid here? Am I missing something obvious? I don't see why anyone would want to die painfully, and dying in your sleep is probably, though of course I don't know this for certain, but it's probably one of the least painful ways to go. It might be completely painless, so hooray. And if you die in your sleep, that strongly suggests you die quite old. You're quite old when you die. So good long life as well. And you die in your sleep. Yeah, that's pretty win-win. So if I'm going from that list, then it's between hero's death and die in your sleep. I'm not seeking a hero's death. I don't want to live in a world where that seems necessary. I'd rather live in a world that's largely characterized by peace. So, yeah, at a good age in my sleep is probably top of that list. Though under extraordinary circumstances, and if I want to make a good story out of this, second place goes to hero. How do your feelings about death influence the way you lead your life? I'm going to go with not enough. We find it difficult to imagine our own death, and although, as you know, one of these days, and it's fast approaching, that I will begin to start to approach middle age, and then I might carry on getting older after that, and it's a very slow creeping process, and we generally think, oh, death's way ahead. It's in the future. I imagine even when I'm 70, I think, and then 80. Oh, no, I've still got several good years in me yet. Loads of people make it to 90. Why shouldn't I? So, yes, we put it off. It does seem there is a very powerful illusion that we have a near infinite amount of time. And this doesn't happen for everyone, of course. And I can include in the list of people for whom that was not the case, my father, who was very nearly killed. He was cycling to work one day, just outside the Hoover building, the old Hoover building in London, and there's a big junction there. So there's a very broad, multi-lane, fast road going that way with lots of traffic going, and there's a big road going that way. And if you want to go from this road to that road, what you're supposed to do is take a slip road earlier, a narrower slip road, and then you could then speed up and merge into the slow lane with the speed of this traffic, and you accelerate up the slip road, and that was the safe way of getting onto this central bit. But unfortunately, a massive concrete mixing lorry, one of these, had missed that turning, had missed the slip road, and when he got to the main road, you thought, I don't want to have to go all the way around and come back. I'll just quickly, there's a gap coming, and you slammed on the accelerator and went sharply left, not seeing my father, who was coming up the inside on a bicycle. Now, three things saved him, three things that you might think would have put him in more danger. The lorry was very heavy, it was going very fast, and the driver hadn't seen my father. All things you would think that might get him killed, but in fact, thank goodness for those three things, because if he had seen my father, he might have slammed on the brakes. Oh no, there's a cyclist there, and come to a halt and squished my father, but he didn't. Instead, he slammed on the accelerator and turned very sharply with this heavy, particularly top-heavy lorry, and the mass of all that cement threw the weight onto the outside wheels of the turn, the wheels of the lorry furthest from my father. So the wheels that did roll over my father, kadump, didn't have much load on them. The bicycle he was riding was apparently, I never saw it, but I was told about it, it was U-shaped, sideways, and the handlebars were all crunched in and all the pedals. So that had acted as a bit of a survival cage. So the bicycle had partly saved him, but the main thing that saved him was the fact that the wheels on the far side were carrying almost all the weight of the lorry. Now, my father was then in hospital for a few weeks, his cracked bones mending, and thinking about his life and thinking, crikey, that was nearly it. I was nearly wiped out there. It was nearly all over. And I'm so young. And it was after that he got very ambitious, went into management and really got on the career ladder, in which he did pretty darn well. So he got that kick up the backside that I've never had. You see, that's the trouble. That's what I've got. My big problem in life is that it's so good, I just don't have anything to whinge about. But also I don't have anything to spur me on in that way. If I thought that death were coming tomorrow, I might get on with things a little bit faster. But then again, is it not better to have a more peaceful life overall than one that's fraught with danger? I'm not going to be seeking out danger just to try to give myself that psychological care. That's not the way to go about things. So, thinking long term, I'm going to stick with cushy, thanks. Now, the original question, if you remember, was if you could choose the manner of your death, what would it be? If you could choose, suggesting we have no choice over the manner of our death. Well, that's actually a false premise, isn't it? We do have choice over our death. I mean, if I wanted to die in a very specific way, I could commit suicide in that way, if that's really important to me. But I've, at the moment, no drive to commit suicide, but I could nonetheless choose a path in life that would make some sort of death more likely than another. If I got really rich, for instance, I might be able to afford to be an alcoholic and I could die of liver failure. Or I could become a landmine clearer in the Ukraine and deliberately seek out the most dangerous jobs, and eventually, maybe bang, that would be the end for me. But that's not suicide. We do have some choice. But if I could choose the manner of my death, what's wrong with the ancient classical Greek one, which is to be surrounded by your grandchildren who love you? If you're surrounded by grandchildren, that suggests that you've succeeded in mission number one in life. You've spawned and created a line, a legacy. And if they love you, well, then that would suggest that you've been a good grandfather and that you're presumably quite a nice guy. So, yeah, surrounded by admittedly, that's fairly unlikely. For me, I don't have children yet, so they'd really have to get their skates on to give me grandchildren before I pop it. But yeah, I don't see why that's not the one that everyone might want to aim for. Why should we? You don't want a society full of people who all want to die heroes. If you just die with people liking you, that's evidence that you were nice, and so you could then live your life in a way that would cause people to like you. And the world must be peopled. Lindybeige!